This video is sponsored by NordVPN. These are two of the very best Android phones you can buy, and in my opinion we are looking at a dinosaur trying to adapt alongside a hotshot that found some traction and has been absolutely crushing it. Of course with its own downfalls. So here is why Samsung might have an old definition of Ultra in its dictionary. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and I've enjoyed Galaxy smartphones for years. The S25 Ultra is a brilliant phone, has a big old screen, plenty of power under that bonnet, a very comprehensive software package, and of course the S Pen. It's almost a utility or productivity focused phone versus the Pixel 10 Pro XL, which feels more luxurious, more modern and certainly more capable in 2025. But the benchmarks, well, they ain't pretty. More on that in a minute. One of the most convenient and handy inventions of the last few years is certainly a VPN, and that's where this video's sponsor NordVPN comes in. Not only does this service help you browse anonymously, tunneling your network traffic through another region which helps secure your connection, but it's also just really handy for watching programs, movies and sports that you just wouldn't get in your home version of Netflix, for example. Or if like me you're a diehard Premier League fanatic and you go on holiday, being able to log into your streaming services just as you normally would without a fuss is brilliant, and NordVPN allows you to do that. It works on Mac, Windows, iOS and our beloved Android. It's easy to install and get set up. If you go to nordvpn.com/androidpolice, you'll get up to 77% off a 2-year plan and 4 months extra for free. So check that link out in the video description, and a big thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring today's content. Okay, let's rip that plaster straight off. Here are the numbers. It's pretty obvious straight off the rip that the Snapdragon 8 Elite in the Galaxy S25 Ultra smokes Google's best efforts in its Tensor G5, particularly in CPU and GPU testing, and this is the sort of thing that you will feel generally browsing, playing games. This is where Galaxy is more old school, because it offers that super high-end performance for those who really want to play high-end games, stuff like Genshin Impact and so on, where the Pixel can run those titles, but not nearly at the same scale or pace. Also, a byproduct of this is that the Galaxy just lasts longer on a charge as well, despite the Pixel actually having an additional 4% capacity. So on paper, it looks better, but in reality doesn't translate. And this is because Qualcomm's chips are just simply more mature than Google's right now, and we're gonna have to wait and see how that develops on the Google side. Google's performance is good enough and will be for many people, but the hardcore enthusiasts, well, they're gonna wanna go Samsung. And whilst both phones now are all-day runners with absolutely no dramas in my experience, the Samsung just gives you a little bit less range anxiety if you're a heavier user, and just additional runtime I guess if you're not. Though I'd recommend charging both overnight if possible, as they both have systems in place to minimize any kind of long-term longevity problems with leaving your phone on charge, and 45 watts over a cable isn't crazy fast anyway, but it gets both from around 0 to 65% in half an hour, so not bad whatsoever. Though if you're a wireless charging fiend, you will prefer the MagSafe-like Qi 2 with magnets on the Pixel 10 Pro XL. The S25 Ultra doesn't have that. They're also very similar on paper in their displays, but in person, there is an obvious winner. The Pixel comes out on top in my opinion. In the pretty rare HDR content, Samsung manages to pull ahead quite significantly. Not necessarily because HDR on Samsung is incredible, but more so because for some reason Google tunes its displays to not perform as high in brightness in HDR. Particularly on manual brightness as well. Outside of this though, in the normal SDR range, which involves, pretty much everything on a phone, browsing around, doom scrolling, playing games, watching most content on YouTube, the Pixel's panel is considerably brighter than the Galaxy's. And that makes it better as an all-round screen for day-to-day usage in my opinion. Sure, the bezels aren't quite as thin, the corners are a little too rounded in my opinion, and it absolutely cannot match the anti-glare coating that Samsung employs on its high-end phones. I still think I prefer the day-to-day usability of the Pixel's panel though. Speaking of, this is where Samsung's hardware might misguide you. On paper, the Galaxy looks like a step above the Pixel in its camera. 200 megapixels, an additional camera, Ultra HD 4K 120, local 8K, more, but In actuality, the Pixel does it all better, in my opinion. From color to camera modes to dynamic range to autofocus performance to moving subject detection, Google has Samsung's number here, and you might not have known that had you just looked at these on paper and just looked at the spec sheets. Both are incredibly capable camera packages that will give you enough grunt and versatility to take wonderful photos for the next few years. And in particular, I do like that Samsung has the better close focusing distance and shoots maybe the better automatic video without cloud interference. And it does have the in-between 3x optical lens for better portraits, although the quality of this is a bit hit or miss. I also think Samsung maybe does the dynamic range not necessarily objectively better, but a little more natural. But the Pixel selfies are clear in my opinion, and it's not close. And on top of that, the 30 times and above zoom with the Pixel enables what it calls ProRes zoom, which is basically an AI generation setup for long range shots that returns photos that look out of this world impressive, especially to those who don't really care if their images are AI generated or not. It's kind of astounding and certainly makes you sit back and rethink what the world is going to look like in a few years, but outside of that deep conversation, it just smokes the Samsung. This is how telephotos will likely be in the future, again pointing towards Samsung being that old dinosaur. In video, as I said before, I do think that Samsung's automatic video is the superior setup. I do prefer its stabilization, I think I prefer its colors as well. I'm a big fan of log recording as an option on a smartphone, and Samsung has employed that here where Google has left that out of the Pixel 10 Pro XL, at least thus far. But the ace up Google's sleeve is its 8K video boost, which you have to wait to upload the footage to the cloud, let it process, and then download it. But for me, this beats every other kind of consumer-facing video of any smartphone. It just takes a little bit of time to upscale before you can actually view it, which I think is a fair compromise in my book for just how good it looks. And overall, I think the Pixel's modern approach to smartphone photography just straight up spits out better results than what Samsung is doing with its what feels like more traditional approach. Which sort of reflects the software as a whole actually. Google's Pixel Studio, Magic Suite of editing tools, Gemini, so on, it all feels like the future, seamless almost. Like AI has actually been part of the building process for the phone since day one, where Samsung's Portrait Studio and AI tools feel very useful, and certainly there's a lot going on here, but it feels like a bit of an afterthought. It feels like the phone was built traditionally and then they added AI, whereas the Pixel feels like an AI phone in a nutshell. And both of these phones are very comprehensive with their software update packages. They will take you into the next decade, quite significantly into them, so that's pretty good. You don't have to worry about any kind of compatibility problems, given that these are expensive phones, and yeah, you're going to want to hold on to them for a long time to sort of make up that money back. But there are distinct hardware differences here that I think might actually sway you one way or the other, so I'm going to nip through those very quickly. The Pixel's buttons are inverted, which I'm not a fan of. Power button goes above, yeah, not great. Its polished sides actually for me make it less slippery than the Samsung. The camera bar looks leagues better in my opinion. The Samsung is noticeably lighter and comes with the built-in stylus, which comes in mega handy to some people and is completely ignored by others, so make your own mind up on this one. The in-display fingerprint scanners are very comparable, which is to say they're both excellent. The SIM card slots are at opposite ends of the phones. Samsung's bezels and front camera are noticeably smaller than on the Pixel, and the Pixel doesn't rock really anywhere near as much on a table compared to the wobbly Samsung. The Pixel speakers sound fuller with better low end. They trade blows in my Wi-Fi testing, though the Pixel seems to lock onto Wi-Fi 7 where the Galaxy wants to stay on Wi-Fi 6. This feels much like the Pixel and the new iPhone actually, a changing of the guard. The Pixel might still not be able to match Samsung or Apple in raw horsepower, what we used to traditionally use to compare flagship models. But in our ever-growing AI world, Google is pulling like an absolute freight train, and it looks like the company is not planning on stopping anytime soon. The Pixel 10 Pro XL for me is the better buy of these two, and that's really not something that I was expecting coming into the comparison with the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Are you more old school or new school with your smartphone purchasing decisions? Are you likely to hold on to the higher end raw horsepower and battery life? Or would you happily kind of drop some of that for better smarts? Or like me, do you not really use AI that much at all? And in that case, maybe neither of these phones are perfect for you. Let me know in the comment section, and whilst you're down there, be sure to like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload on this channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.